Good evening, everyone. Hello and welcome. If you can hear me, if you can see me okay, coming through loud and clear, just type in the chat and say hello. Tell me which state are you zooming in from? I'd love to know. Whereabouts in Australia are you? I'm actually in Bali at the moment, and we've got the lovely Xenia joining us tonight.
From Adelaide.
From Adelaide. I heard it got down to below 0 degrees
Oh, it
last
got
week.
really cold. I don't know what it was, but it was really bad.
There you go. Well, I'm glad I'm not there that time of year now.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So we've got Sydney, Melbourne. Amazing. Lots of people from Melbourne here tonight. Melbourne again. Hey, freezing. I think everyone on this Zoom is based in Melbourne tonight by the looks of it.
And look at you with a t-shirt on.
I know, right? Bare arms, no jacket. You can tell I'm definitely not in Australia right now. WA, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to say a special welcome to all of our new members that have recently joined the Positive Property family. Welcome to the program. We're very excited to have you here tonight. And what we do and how these sessions work is we interview our circle of safety and our team of hand-picked experts. So we've got Xenia here from Byron Repeat, property management specialist for South Australia in the house tonight. And there's a lot of changes and things that have happened recently just in 2024 that we need to be informed about in order to stay safe, in order to know how to do things correctly as property owners, property investors, and just how to make sure that we're doing everything we need to do. So I'd love to know the latest. If you want to just start, I guess, Xenia, by doing a little bit of an introduction and tell us a bit about yourself. How long have you been a property manager for, things like that?
Sure, Christina. I've been a property manager for far too long. So about 20 years. But I have to say, these new rental reforms that have just come in are 11 days old. So they've only started on the 1st of July. So I wouldn't say that I've got years and years experience on them. There's a lot of speculation right now. Like, I can tell you what they are. I can't tell you what the consequences are going to be in like 2 to 5 years or whatever, what is going to happen. We can look at other states that have had these reforms come through and do a little bit of speculation of what might happen in Adelaide. We're dealing with it as it comes. Yeah. I would actually love to answer any specific questions if people have on the reforms. Or have you guys had a chance to have a look at them?
Yeah, who even knows? Like 11 days ago, that's very fresh. So you're hearing it here first, ladies and gentlemen, hot off the press. But what do these laws mean? How's it going to impact us? Most importantly, how do we keep ourselves safe as property investors, property owners, and navigate these uncharted territories? And I think that's an important thing you mentioned there before, Xenia, about other states having these laws. So that can give us a bit of a precedent on how to act and how to navigate moving forward. But yeah, it's going to be great to understand what's happened and what's recently been rolled out in regards to the legislation.
What Tanya's just asked, are they just in South Australia? And no, they're not. They are actually in Melbourne and Queensland as well. They have just been released in South Australia on the 1st of July. So I'll go through a few of them and what they actually are. So the first one is that you cannot increase the rent more than once a year. So more than once in 12 months. So what we used to be able to do, well, actually, at the beginning when I first started, you used to be able to increase the rent whenever you wanted, because there was clauses in the contract saying that a rent review will be done periodically and whatever, every few months we used to do, have a look at what the market is doing and review the rent. So then they made it that you can only review the rent at the end of a fixed term lease period. So that could have been 6 months, it could have been 12 months, but you couldn't actually review the rent while there was a fixed term lease period with a tenant. To get around that, a lot of landlords used to do 6-month leases. So at the end of that lease, it's the end of that lease, 6-month lease period. So now we can do a rent review and put the rent up if we want. Well, now they've just put a stop to that as well. So even if you've done a 6-month lease, you cannot increase the rent for the same tenant in the same in 12 months. So it's actually really important to get the rent right to begin with. And it's also really important to actually increase the rent or get it to market value at the end of that 12-month period, because you can get left behind really quickly. It can get away from you. We've got one property on our books at the moment, and the landlords are very, very sympathetic to these rent reviews. So it was at 350 a week. It should have been in the 600s.
Oh wow, that's a big difference from what it should be market value.
Yeah, that's because Adelaide had gone up a lot in the last couple of years. So in the first year, we asked them to put it up to like 450, and they said no, we're going to leave it. Second year, no, we're going to leave it. Third year, no, we're going to leave it. Now we're getting into the fourth year, and they went, oh, can you put it up to 600? And we just went, oh my God, are you kidding me? And we did, because that's in line. That is what it actually should be. But I think that tenant's going to leave. So now they've created a vacancy. There shouldn't have been a vacancy, because they should have done those incremental rents to begin with. So, yeah, landlords need to keep on top of that. So that is one protection there. Oh, I have lost my train of thought. Has anyone got any questions on that?
Not yet. But yeah, that's crazy that there's been a big jump in rent, I'd say, particularly over the last 12 months. Do you think that's what's motivated the Australian government to change the laws and put in this?
Oh, totally. They're trying to protect tenants. That's what they're going to do. They're not taking any responsibility for having caused the rent increases and everything, which they don't. But are there certain percentages? Not in South Australia at the moment. I think there are in other states. I think in Melbourne and Queensland, you cannot increase the rent more than zero rent cap. So same question. In South Australia, what we need to do is a comparative market analysis on the property. So there is no certain percentage, as long as we can show comparative properties and that it's in line with market value.
Yeah, you should be getting market rent.
Yeah,
another
thanks for that.
To touch on is when it comes to making sure that you are getting the market rent for your investment property, making sure that you've got it under professional property management. And I see a lot of people run into trouble and get themselves into hot water, basically because they try to be their own property managers. And it's crazy the amount of people out there who have got investment properties who are doing the property management themselves, when they really need to give it to a professional who knows how to look at the property like a business and manage it professionally. Otherwise, if it's not being managed like an asset that's there to make you money, then it won't get the right results. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've got to say that we see all the really bad ones that come through, because obviously people that are managing their property correctly are going to come to us. So yeah, we do. I mean, we've picked up a couple of properties this week where the tenants have been in there for 2 years already. No lease, nothing signed, no lease, no nothing. Just, here's my bank details, put the money in.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an important thing to point out, that the property owner was not protecting themselves by doing that. They were leaving themselves totally exposed to potential future litigation. Who knows? Like, that could open up a big can of worms in the future and really backfire. So you've got to really make sure that you do things by the book, essentially, with a professional property manager who can make sure that you are crossing your T's and dotting your I's. Let's just see.
And no bonds taken.
Yeah, definitely. On Facebook, is that the same with the new build? Luke asked on Facebook, is that the same with the new build? Need a bit more context to that question. Not quite sure what you mean there, Luke.
Are you talking about the rent increases? The rent increases are the same whether it's a new build or old build. Obviously, when you do the comparative analysis to other properties, if it's a new build, it's going to attract more rent. So you do a comparative analysis to other new builds.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure if I've answered that question. I'm sorry, but
like I said, I think we need a bit more context, but yeah, I feel like that was a pretty good answer regardless. So obviously not being able to increase the rent for another 12 months since they would sign on as tenants for the property. What else has changed recently in the legislation?
Okay, I think one of the things that I absolutely hate is that you can't get rid of a tenant. unless you have prescribed grounds, which is good and bad, actually. It's good from the perspective of, landlords that just hate tenants for no reason. No, I just hate these tenants and I'm just going to get rid of them and get other tenants. So it does give the tenants a little bit of protection from being bullied, I guess. And I think that this is what they meant when that came into law. What I don't like about it as a property manager is sometimes you do have tenants that look after the property and pay the rent on time, but are just totally psychotic. They're really difficult to deal with. They're abusive. They're just not nice people. And these are the people that we want to get out. So what the new laws are saying is tough. You're stuck with them.
Have to deal with it. Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think to protect yourself from that is, I think, sometimes when you're going through applications, like I would ring a landlord and say, these people are kind of on the edge. Shall we give them a go? And, you discuss that at application. Ultimately, the landlord makes a decision anyway. And I think those people that are kind of on the edge where we're not sure, will probably not get a chance now.
The maybe will turn into a no.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The maybe will turn into a no, because sometimes a landlord would say, let's give them a chance for like 6 months and see how we go. Or
but that's not an option anymore. We haven't got that flexibility now,
because we won't be able to get them out. So it's going to end up being that the top tenants will get rent. The ones that are kind of on the edge probably won't be. Obviously, it's up to the landlords, but it's landlords in discussion with the property manager as well.
Yep. So Tanya said, assuming though at the end of the lease they have to leave. Here in Victoria, there is a database for tenants. Is it the same thing in SA, WA and Queensland?
What was that? There's a database for tenants. Can you read that again? Sorry.
Yeah, here in Victoria, there is a database for tenants. Is this the same in SA?
So the database for tenants is actually, it's a national thing. So it's Australia-wide. So when we screen tenants here in South Australia, we can see that they've rented in Queensland, or we can see that they've rented in Melbourne. So if they've defaulted on rent and owe money to a landlord in any state in Australia, we can actually see it. So it's not state by state. We actually capture those details across Australia.
So it's like public information, basically.
Yeah, on a really heavy subscription basis, yes.
You've got to pay to access.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Right. So the rent can't be increased for 12 months. You can't kick a tenant out.
Unless it's a prescribed basis. And those prescribed basis, by the way, renovating the property. You can renovate the property, selling the property, or if you want to move back into the property. Otherwise, tenants get to stay.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a bit of give and take when it comes to that sort of thing. It's got to be a win-win. It can't just be, having the ability to kick people out overnight, but also on that case, we want it to be fair and equitable so that it's a win-win situation. So we are not having to deal with nightmare tenants either.
I said, even when the lease ends, even when the lease ends. So what happens when a lease ends, when a fixed term tenancy ends, is it reverts to a periodic tenancy. So what's happened in other states, from my understanding, is a lot of tenancies are just reverted to periodic, and then they stay on periodic, and that's just not nice at all. We try to, so month to month, yes. We try not to allow tenants to be on periodic. Like I said, I mean, when we have this discussion again in 2 years' time, I'll be able to tell you, this is what's happened because of these reforms. Right now, it's just speculation on what's going to happen. Right now, if a tenancy is going to be renewed, like a fixed term tenancy, we will send them the renew notice, and we'll also send them a termination notice. So it's like sign or leave, because we don't like periodic tenancy. There's a lot of discussion around why I don't like periodic tenancies, but the new legislations look like they're going to push tenancies into being periodic.
Ooh, right.
Because there are no consequences for a tenant not signing a fixed term lease. So that's a process. This is where it's become really important to have a property manager, because that's a process that you've got to manage as well. Because under a periodic lease, they can give you 21 days notice to leave. So you've got to be on the ball to re-rent it. I mean, on the good side is if they leave, you can just up the rent to whatever you want at that stage.
Yeah. So there's definitely a list of pros and cons when it comes to these sorts of changes that are all happening. What have we got here? What about if you get a tenant who wants to rent for a 12-month period and the current tenant is in periodic basis?
If they want to rent for a 12-month period, you can send them.
Sorry, that was the question I was saying. So if the current person that's in there is on a periodic agreement, but then let's say in a couple of months you find someone that goes and says, "Oh, I want to come in for a 12-month fixed period," do they take precedence, or
What do you mean somebody else?
what does it? Let's say that someone's on a month-to-month periodic basis. Would there be an interest from someone to actually come in as a different tenant and say, "Hey, I want to do a 12-month"? Is there room for the person that's on the month-to-month to be sort of asked to leave?
No.
Right, okay.
Oh, if we could do that, we'll just remarket the property and get another lease. So it will start off on a 12-month lease, but my guess is they'll all revert to periodic. And that's not because, you're not trying to renew those 12-month leases. It's because tenants don't have any consequences for not signing a new lease. So why do we need a lease? Yeah, good question. Well, you need a lease to begin with.
Absolutely. Great question.
It's still a lease. It actually still is a lease, and it still has, even though it's periodic, it still has all the legislation that a lease agreement still has. It's just that the tenant can then give 21 days notice to leave.
Right.
So you've got to be really on the ball to, once they give that 21 days notice, that the property needs to be re-advertised straight away, even when the tenant is already in there, and to maximize the vacancies. Yeah. This is the Wild West. I know. I know. Yep.
Absolutely. We're going to be shifting off Facebook Live very shortly, and then we're going to head into more of a deep dive, and then we might even jump into some breakout rooms with our members a little bit later. But I feel like, it is changing a lot when it comes to navigating the property management aspect of an investment property with these changes. I guess it's already happened in a few states. So it's a big deal, but it's not a big deal because it's sort of already happening in other states, and we've still got people obviously who are finding it okay and managing it. And like you said, I think it just comes back to having someone that's on the ball, really able to understand and navigate these changes that are coming into play. Because if you've got someone who is watching that property and understands if something does happen, the next move that they need to make, they can action that appropriately and mitigate your risks and really maximize your ROI. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. That's why we're here. That's why we're investing in property. We want to get the best result possible out of our properties.